Python comes equipped with many built-in functions that you can use out of the box. For example, on my screen you can see several functions. Print is one of the function which is used to print anything on your console output. On line number 4, you can see that we have declared a list of numbers. We can use print function to print the length of that particular list using len function. Same way, we can use int function to convert a string value into an integer. So these are several examples of built-in functions which you normally use in your programs very frequently. So these functions make basic tasks convenient and are a good starting point to understand how functions work. Now let's see how we can define our own functions. To define a function in Python, we use the def keyword followed by the function name and the parenthesis. So we will define something like def greet colon in the new line print hello from a function. So this is how we can define our own function in any Python program. So let's see now how we can call our function. To call the function, we can simply write greet followed by the parenthesis. So let's save it and run it. So as you can see, our first statement hello Python is printed here. Same way other two print statement also printed. And then finally we have called a function that has printed hello from a function. So this is pretty simple. Always use clear and descriptive names for your functions to indicate what the function does. Functions can take parameters, which are values you pass to the function to customize its behavior, and they can return a result as well. So let's create a new function. Def add numbers number 1, number 2. Enter return num1 plus num2. So this is our new function to add two numbers. This function accepts two parameters. So you can use parameters to make your functions flexible and return values to send data back from a function. So let's try to call this function to add two numbers. So result equal to add numbers 1, 1. Now let's print this result as well. Print result. So let's try to run it. So you can see here it has added two numbers and result is printed on the console output. Functions can have default parameters as well, allowing them to be called with fewer arguments. For example, in the same function, if we assign number 1 to some default value using equal to 5 and number 2 equal to 3. In this case, if we simply remove these two parameters from the function call, it will take number 1 as 5 and number 2 as 3. And when this function executes, it returns 5 plus 3. So let's try to test this. So you can see it has printed 8. We'll remove this. So let's take another example of default parameters. So this is the code snippet which uses the default values of the parameters. So in this case, we are using age as the default parameters and its value is 35. So let's see. On line number 9, we are calling this function with only one parameter, which is a mandatory parameter. And the second argument, age, we are not passing it. So by default, it will take age is equal to 35. On line number 10, we are calling this function with two parameters. with different values. So let's see how this is working in practical way. So let's run it. So this is how default parameters work. Default parameters are useful for setting common values for arguments, reducing the amount of code needed. Functions in Python can access global variables, but to modify them globally, you must declare them as global within the function. So let's say we have a variable pi with this value and radius 10. Let's calculate the area. So we will define a function calculate area. So we can use the global keyword and define radius. So this particular statement says to function that radius variable is a global variable. Now let's return pi into radius exponent 2. So this is how we are calculating the area. Now let's call it print calculate area. Now let's try to run this program. So you can see the area is printed. Limit the use of global variables to constants or when absolutely necessary, as they can make debugging more challenging. Understanding variable scope is crucial. Variables defined inside a function are local to that function and cannot be accessed outside of it. So let's take an example. We are defining a my function with these two statements, and we are calling my function and print the value of a. Let's see how this is behaving. So you can see that a is underlined. So this is a feature of IDE which is saying ahead of time that a is undefined. So when you hover it, the message says a is not defined. Let's try to run this program. So you can see this name error is raised by the Python. Let's comment this line, and if we try to print a, so you can see 20 has been printed, which is nothing but a local variable to this my function. So this clearly says that a is visible and accessible only during this my function scope. Keep local variables within the functions where they are used. This encapsulates the variable, making your code more reliable and easier to debug. That's a wrap of Python functions. Today we covered defining functions, parameters, default parameters, global variables, and variable scope. Functions are a fundamental part of Python programming that can make your code more efficient and maintainable. Practice creating your own functions to see just how powerful they can be. Thanks for watching. If you found this tutorial helpful, please like, subscribe, and share with others. Have questions or suggestions for future tutorials? Drop a comment below. See you soon.